All right. Hey, it's good to see you, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Same here.
All right. It is officially 3 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Greg, we're going to do our very best to limit this to 60 minutes.
Okay,
We try every Sunday we go over a little bit, but we're going to do our best.
very good. Yeah,
All right. All right, people. I would like to take this time to introduce our special guest for the day.
I have plenty for both of you. Todd, do you want one?
A wonderful individual I've known for years. And I've always said this for years, the best person I have ever worked for, regardless of levels. And I think that's a testament to just not only just his how he operates, how he handles his business, but also who he is as a assigner, as a man, as a human being. One of the people that I respect the utmost in this world, and I have the pleasure of calling him my friend.
thank you.
And I'd like to introduce to those who may not know him, this is Mr. Greg Small, the coordinator of women's basketball for the MIAA and the GAC. And also, this past year was his first season as an NCAA regional observer, which we're going to touch on that just a little bit here in a second, Greg.
Yeah,
So, Greg, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. The family's got a little time off, and we're down at the Lake of the Ozarks, and we're enjoying just a gorgeous day here. It's
That's
in the
wonderful.
mid 80s, and the rest of my family is down in the about 100 feet from me, down in the water in the lake. So yeah,
Oh,
everything's good.
hey, enjoy it while you can. The weather's cooperating and you have the freedom and opportunity. Hey, enjoy every minute, man.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, as we get ready to roll into this, I don't have any questions that anyone has requested me to ask on their behalf, so I'm assuming everyone will be on the call today. And so let's start off with our first question of the day. Does anyone have a question for Greg that they would like to start the meeting off with?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead, Todd.
Hi, Greg.
Hey, Todd.
Hey, as someone who might be new to your roster for this upcoming season, what would your expectations be for them being new to your conferences, whether it's the GAC or the MIAA?
Yeah, I think really initially they should, at our preseason Zoom meeting, kind of take things in. I mean, we talk about, especially on non-rule change years, a lot of logistical stuff as far as my expectations. Some of those things I think we voice maybe in the Q&A that we had at camp this summer. Someone may not have been there that I'm hiring. So I think initially just kind of getting a feel for what I expect, getting a feel for kind of what our staff is like as far as our makeup of our staff and kind of our expectations. But going in, I try to make sure that new folks are that they feel welcome, and try to develop kind of a trusting relationship with everybody. I think maybe game expectations would be somewhere. I'm going to try and work everybody enough that they get a little bit of a taste of the conference. Certainly the coach official relationship. I try to get them games maybe geographically within their area where they can kind of start to allowing those coaches to develop some trust in them, and then just kind of build on that as we move into the next years. So
That's good. That's really good. That's really great. That's really good information, especially for our newer officials who are either just now coming on staff, or even if you've been on staff for a year or two. I mean, this is really great information. All right, what does anyone have a follow-up to that question, or do we have another question we'd like to pose to Greg?
I don't have a follow-up, but I have another question. Greg, I was curious because I know we talked about how you previously we talked about how you wouldn't have extra time with not refereeing. It would be probably fuller working in your new position. So I was curious about how you balanced that with also coordinating the GAC and the MIAA, and how that worked being in your new role.
Steph, good to hear from you. Hope your family is doing well. I'm sure they are. You know, it was exciting last year when I say it was exciting. It was a little melancholy, I guess, when I stepped off the floor, but I knew I was very comfortable with it. I felt like at that time toward the middle of summer that it was going to give me the opportunity to uh, have a little more time with our staffs and be able to kind of focus a little more on getting at it and observing a little more. As it turned out, it didn't quite work that way with our national coordinator. I think had in her mind that I might be a viable candidate for the regional advisors position. So as things happened in June, she came to my camp, and then things kind of progressed, and the actual interview process lasted a couple months into August, and gave her an opportunity to kind of see how I handled myself at camp at the College Basketball Academy last year in Memphis, and so I think the balance I kind of fell into a routine. It did give me the opportunity to watch a lot more games on film, and give feedback through that. I hope this year I can do a better job of scheduling my regional advisors games in areas where maybe I can go ahead and maybe catch a GAC game or an MIAA game, and kind of do it that way. And hopefully that will be an advantage for our staff. And I'll do a good job with the regional advisors position, and we just got our contracts the other day, so that was a good sign. I got rehired, so I didn't get fired. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And that's actually the same question that I had at the back of my mind also, Greg. I think it helps everybody gain a perspective on what your life looks like during the basketball season. That is actually, believe it or not, even though you come off the floor, you are just as busy, if not busier, than you were when you were on the floor.
Oh, that without a doubt, Wayne. Everybody asked me, how the year went, and I think it went well. I think we, without a doubt, had an exceptional Division I tournament. And that's not all to our credit, but certainly the data and the input that the four regional advisors give Penny, and then ultimately as the postseason kind of gets wound up and we get together in Indianapolis, it gives us an opportunity to have some direct feedback when we're starting to put names up on a board as far as crew assignments are related to. So ultimately it comes down, it lands in Penny's lap, but she has created such a team environment with all four of us and her and Lynn Andrew that it's really it's a fun environment when we get in that room, because we know that in about 4 days these names that are going to be up on the board are going to come to fruition, and we're going to get to see them out on the floor, and hopefully they do a great job, which overall they did. And you have certain people that you're fighting for, that we see during the year, and maybe a lot of these people ultimately I had worked with in the past over the last 31 years. So you have kind of those past relationships to kind of draw back on, but ultimately it's got to be it's got to be the performance that year, that those small sampling of games that we see. We usually see everybody on our watch list at least twice. So between 60 and 65 officials, those are kind of our responsibility. Now that doesn't mean that we don't see people on other people's watch lists, and that's actually a very positive thing because it gives, another set of eyes on these officials that now we can say, Alicia Walker saw him a couple times. I saw him once or twice. Wanda Zametta sees him again, and we all have positive feedback. Then that's data that Penny can use and just substantiates that this person is probably a solid official.
That's good. That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Okay, do we have another question for Greg to follow up after that one?
I actually had a question. Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead. Mine's not
Okay,
long.
thanks. All right. Hey, hi, Greg. This is Isis Lane. So I had a question for you. If you could go back to when you first started officiating, and if you were to now be able to give your younger self some advice, what would that be?
Isis, hey, nice to meet you. I think it would ultimately. I was so busy with my other job. I was a former educator, a coach, an administrator, athletic administrator, and I think I tried to do a good job of balancing everything. But I think at some points in my career, my job as a teacher probably I sacrificed that a little more than I should have. Are you an educator?
Yeah, it's actually this will be my first full year officiating, and I teach 11th grade U.S. history. So
Okay,
it was the perfect question for me to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I throughout my career I had really good administrators, and they were very supportive of what I did. My second job, not so much. I was teaching in a very small school, and I was doing everything. I was head track coach, I was head football coach, I was the athletic director, still taught about 5 blocks during the day. We were on a 7-block day. So I think it impacted my job a little bit there. I think I would have been a little more open to technology. Back when I started, there really wasn't, I got a whole stack of VHS tapes in my closet that, we were handed or mailed after every Division I game. So I think technology just had such a huge impact on what we do now, and certainly is just getting more and more. We see with the availability of instantaneous feedback in the locker room at halftime. If you have those programs available to you, certainly after the game to break things down and replay systems and all those different aspects that have made our game so accessible to us and also to the public, which I don't know is always a great thing. But, I think that those things looking back, probably I would have hoped that I would maybe handle just a little bit differently and been a little more open to, absorbing some things related to technology.
That's wonderful. Isis, great question. Thank you very much. Tanner, would you like to get your question in now?
Yeah. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Tanner.
I was just wondering what qualities or what intangibles you see in officials you're going to hire or progress through your leagues. Like, what do you?
Yeah. I think I'm probably not that much different than a lot of coordinators early on, and I think I've gotten better at identifying people that are that have these qualities. But early on, I was coming off the floor, and I had just refereed in the MIAA the year before, and all of a sudden now I'm now I'm the coordinator. So I think I had to be. I'm not sure I really paid enough attention to some of these qualities, but to put a name on these, I think you got to have a high level of integrity. I have to trust that my officials are going to do what's best for the game when the game's on the line. So and throughout, in communication with me, communication's key, obviously. Being trustworthy, just being a good person, and being open to getting better. I think is something that I found myself, I think, at a couple points, and I kind of had to go back in my career, and not just as a coordinator, but also as an official, and kind of check myself, because I think when we've had a good year, we all kind of think, well, I'm pretty good, and I realized that maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was, and the same thing with coordinating. I try to look at, maybe after camp gets over, I've got kind of a month of getting evaluation stuff in, and kind of seeing if this is really exactly the best way I'm doing things, kind of a project management type thing. Check, am I just checking boxes, or am I providing all the officials with the best opportunity to learn ultimately, and then is that the format that's best for me to be able to evaluate people? So I think integrity, trust, communication, organizational skills are they can't be emphasized enough. I mean, anybody that's been to camp, the one thing that everybody, hey, are you keeping track of your closed dates? And I'm going to send something out here in the next week, related to that, to all of our staffs, to both staffs, that I've almost got all the schedules in. So I'm getting ready to start putting, some names in some slots here coming up. So I think those are the ones that, right off the top of my head, are probably the ones that just jump out to me as being the most important.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Greg. Greg, I'm kind of curious, in your multiple roles that you're now serving and giving your time and effort to, as you are observing officials and observing games, more and more games, more and more officials, over the years, have you noticed a difference or a trend that you see developing in the officiating community that's different than it was several years ago?
I don't know how different it is. I'm not sure I realized that this trend was so impactful to our game, but it's our positioning is when the data comes in the end, positioning is about 75% of why we miss plays, why we get calls incorrect. And it doesn't always have to be a huge positioning change, but we get, you're going to see some things on the NCAA film that just boggle my mind, that during the season, either I turned in, or Wanda, or Kathy, or Alicia, or Penny saw, that people just, you're like, they can't see this play from where they are, but yet they put a whistle on it. So it's positioning, it's whistle cadence, it's just basic judgment on, hey, if I can't see it, maybe somebody else can, and now we don't miss it as a crew. And some of these are big plays that if they would have changed position, if they would have moved one way, they would have been able to get to the shooter's hand and see contact, or if you're stacked behind a 3-point shooter and they go to the floor, well, what caused them to go to the floor? Was it they just fell on their own, or did somebody take away a landing place for a shooter? Those are, I think some of the big things that, for me, I think were always happening. I'm not sure I just understood it as clearly as I do now. And I think I realized it more when I became a coordinator, which I think made me a better official my last, whatever, 12 or 13 years that I was still coordinating and officiating. So I think that would be the biggest one.
Amen. Amen, brother. I agree with that 110%. All right. Do we have another question for Greg? Who has our next question?
While we're still talking about that, I kind of had a follow-up on it. What are ways that you would suggest that officials can improve their positioning?
Okay, I think obviously the CCA manual gives us kind of some mandated starting positions, and that's not, we all try to get to those, but I think especially at lead, we oftentimes we we misposition ourselves early, which then forces our crew into kind of an unbalanced position, and it doesn't allow us at lead to rotate as quickly as we need to. So I think that's one of the big things. I think on the perimeter at sea and trail, oftentimes we don't anticipate the style of play, or just your position on the floor, and not anticipating the ball movement or the movement of players in your primary, puts us in those positions that are so detrimental to us making a solid judgment on either contact, no contact, incidental, violation, whatever the case may be. I think those are kind of two big things, and just trusting that two of the other people on the floor, if we don't want you to guess. So if you don't have a good look at it, hopefully, and it's a big impactful play, then somebody else on the crew can come and get it. And I think that's the thing that Penny is going to really emphasize in these meetings, is that don't we a few years ago we heard double whistles, we don't want to have double whistles. I think she's really going to emphasize, hey, double whistles are okay if they're coming from two people that have a look on the play. If in fact two people have that look and we give it up to the primary, then that's the way we need to handle that. So I think we can get better with positioning, but I think it has to be a purposeful and thoughtful choice that we make and recognize during the process, and it kind of has to become a habit. So developing and doing the things that you all are doing during the summer is certainly helpful, and watching film that has people doing it correctly, watching people that make mistakes on those is what helped make us get better. So good question.
Yeah, another good question, Isis. Thank you. Okay, before we move any further, Tanner Gray, next time the baby comes in the room, you must introduce her to everybody, please, if you don't mind, so she can make her cameo appearance.
Yes.
If you can get her to sit still, Wayne, I'll do that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, who has our next question for Greg?
I have a question. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hey, Peggy, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I'm on the ground, so that's always a good thing for me.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, being my first year coming in and having multiple supervisors, I know that there's an order of doing things as far as scheduling. What does that look like? I want to effectively communicate if there is an assignment that I receive from you, Greg, and an assignment I receive from a lower level assigner on the same day. And I know there's an order, but I want to know how it looks like communicating that information so I can effectively communicate that without any conflict.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, congratulations, Peggy.
Thank you.
Great to talk to you and have you on staff this year. So, I think ultimately, we're all, as officials, we're independent contractors. We have to make a decision that works best for our schedule. Certainly your work situation is a little unique to someone else, but I think ultimately your close dates, if you're going to know in advance, and we've already kind of communicated this, that you may not know till about a month prior. What I try to do, and I've done it different ways in the past, but I'll probably assign my entire season almost before the middle of October. Now, if I have a game for you in December and you know that you get your schedule, I'll just adjust. That's why regionally I have the number of officials that I have on staff. As far as like Division II to NAI to other Division II, you've got to decide if you've been working for somebody for a lot longer and they say, well, I need two Saturdays every month from you or something like that, then just block it to me. If you want to leave them open, if you want to leave a note in your date, I can certainly work around that as well. I just need to know ahead of time.
Okay.
I would say if it's a lower level game, you might just make a note. Or if you want to leave it open and don't leave a note, and then if I assign over the top of that game, then it would just be kind of your responsibility to communicate with that coordinator. I don't know as many of the folks, maybe in Texas or wherever, as I do, Tony and John down there. But on another sidebar, I'll get back to the question. Wayne, have you heard anything related to John's health?
All I know is he's still in the hospital. I don't know, the last thing I heard, he was doing okay,
Okay.
but I don't know the exact details of his condition as of today.
Okay. Yeah. Because we didn't find out about it until we were in Indianapolis this last week. And it was really shocking, obviously to hear that he was having such issues. So anyway, I'll reach out to Tony maybe and see what the situation is. But going back, Peggy, I think I can only respond from my viewpoint as far as how we communicate here in the Midwest. If I have a game or someone has a game for me, it's sorry, somebody came in the background. It's easy for me to pick up the phone and communicate with any number of different coordinators.
Okay.
And if there's a conflict, then we'll work it out. If I'm a Division II and I assign over an NAI game, I'll just pick up the phone and whoever it may be in the Midwest, we've got a group of about 7 coordinators that are going to be very open with each other. I don't want to impact anybody's game on a Saturday in January, but if I need somebody and I feel like it would be a good game for you, I'm gonna try and I want to do what's best for the MIAA or the GAC, but I also don't want to impact somebody else's game, especially at the very last minute, like on a Saturday morning, and somebody has an emergency or something. I'm going to try and be very mindful of if they say no, I'll move on to the next person. So I'd say just be open, honest with all your coordinators. Me, just do what you feel best is for your individual situation, and then if it doesn't work out, I'll move on. It's nothing personal. We know that we want to give our officials the best opportunities that we can provide for them to be successful. But there's lots of games out there, and I know my mantra, when I was refereeing, everybody wants one more game, but just working one more game may not be the best thing for your individual work situation or your family or whatever the case may be. So be mindful of that. And just be open and be a great communicator. And I think you've already checked that box.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Peggy, it has been remiss of me, and I apologize. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I know how hard you worked to make this happen.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will continue to work hard.
Yeah.
There it is.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have a follow-up question to Peggy's question? I do have another question for Greg.
I have a question to Greg.
Oh, TC,
Hello.
go ahead.
Hey, hi Greg, how are you?
Hey, TC, good. How about you?
Good, good, good. I'm sorry, I'm in a car, so I cannot get my video on.
Okay.
Okay. If you have an official who may be either younger or newer or not as established on your staff, what would be the best approach to build a connection with you? And what steps would you suggest?
I think that obviously I'm not going to be at games of every official that I assign during the season. So I think overall rapport with other staff members is certainly a big part of kind of that relationship, because as my as my crew chiefs on games, I communicate with them after games, after every game. They communicate back with me. I think that's certainly big. I rely on coaches' evaluations, which I take with a grain of salt most of the time. But that, as far as developing a relationship with me, most of the time people are going to see me during either at meetings, if we had them in person, which I hope we will be able to do that again in the future, or during the summer at camps. And I think we need to look long and hard at how we're doing things, and not, some people have multiple camps during the summer. I this year pared it down to one, and certainly felt like it was worthwhile to do it that way. So I'm not sure exactly how the best way to do that is, but right now, newer officials, I think they've just got to they have to keep their head down. They've got to do a solid job through games. Word's going to get back to me if someone is struggling, or if they're not a good communicator, or if they're late to games. I mean, all those things are very accumulative and build up over a period of time, and it can be very detrimental to officials that allow those things that they can control to affect their overall career. I think for the most part, I try to be very open. I try to talk to people at camp. I want to develop that relationship. I want to know about your background, what you do, and your family, and those sort of things. Sometimes it's hard to sit down for half hour with everybody, but over the years, I think that's probably one of the ways that it seems to me to be the most effective way to kind of develop that relationship. And then ultimately, just do your job during the year. Be a great communicator, and build that trust with me, as well as kind of with our coaches. Ultimately, they don't have a say of who I hire or who I don't rehire, or so I want them to be comfortable with officials we put on the floor, but I also know that sometimes there's just people that you don't get along with. But we have to be very objective in those types of interactions, and just set those things aside, and try to overcome that maybe that relationship to be a better official. I think ultimately that kind of helped me. There's always these games you go into, and you're like, man, this coach just really has been an issue with me in the past. And that's not a reason for me not to assign you to a game. What I'm trusting is that you will take that challenge and be able to overcome that, and maybe turn that relationship into one that now that hopefully they'll develop that trust with you being on the floor. So, yep.
Good question, TC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, TC.
Yeah, and Greg, I agree. I do really think officials should work hard and allow their body of work to speak for them, and also operate with a perspective of professionalism in everything that they do. And that applies to how they communicate, how they respond, how they handle their closed dates, how they handle their communication within the crew. You know, how do they arrive at games? And I mean, everything adds to that body of work, which will speak for you. It will speak loudly for you. And then there are individuals, like you said, there are individuals on your staff that you trust and that you listen to, and they will communicate also along with the individual communication that you can have during camp, during meetings. So it all is you said the word earlier, it's cumulative, and
Yeah.
it builds. And here's the key, whether it's positive or it's negative, it's cumulative.
Right.
And so master the things that you have control over and just operate with an air of professionalism. I think it'll take you very far, and it'll speak volumes for you. All right. Do we have our next question for Greg?
I have another question if nobody else had one.
No. Good.
Yeah, so I'm just starting out, so I have all of the questions in the world, really. So this is more of a in-game, like on the floor question. So say you you have a play, you put a whistle on it, you have a call, and immediately you don't love it. You may actually dislike it. And the coach wants to talk to you. And like I said, you don't even love it yourself. What does that conversation sound like, look like?
I think we start with our body language, because oftentimes when we don't like a play, our facial expressions give it away, our body language gives it away. We can still be confident and present a positive image on the floor, even though we know that maybe we kicked it and we don't like it. First thing is that you said, which is positive, is we know we didn't like it. So now you have that to draw on and know that and hopefully the entire crew sees that we're not going to match that bad play. We don't want to match consistency. Bad consistency is not what we're looking for. So obviously, knowing that, first of all, then, you know, you've got to be open to, if the coach wants to say something about it, then we've got to be open to that communication. You can't just shut them out. The things that I hear from coaches that are probably the most challenging and to me and the most disappointing are that either an official didn't communicate with me, or this official thinks they're never wrong. Okay. So coaches know 100% that we're not going to be perfect. They know that, because the game is the deck's kind of stacked against us in that respect, because we have plays that we're not going to see. We're going to miss. We're going to, just like you said earlier, we're going to put whistles on plays that we know we shouldn't have had a whistle on, or somebody else had a better look at it. And, you know, how many times have you gone to a partner and say, well, what, you know, I had a block on that. I thought I had a pretty good look at it. And they're like, oh man, you know, that looked like a flat run over, and that was a player control or charge. So, you know, we have to be willing to kind of throw ourselves under the bus. You know, there's early on as a newer official, I think you just go, you communicate, you present yourself in a way that you're willing to accept that information. And I mean, everybody communicates a little bit differently. You know, little tricks might be that you just say, Coach, hey, I thought I had a good look at it, but I'm going to get a better look next time. And if we differ on that, then hopefully I'm going to be better. Or, I mean, if you maybe a little ways down the road, you can just say, Coach, I mean, you can initiate it. Coach, that was not a good call. You know, we're going to be better as a crew, and I'm going to be better personally to get those plays. Sometimes it's just a matter of listening, you know, and they don't they don't even want a response because they already know in their mind from a very subjective standpoint that you're wrong. So, you just listen, give them some time, give them an ear, and then you move on and go that route. So I think ultimately don't present yourself in a negative image, that you're, I've seen so many people, they didn't like the call. They go to the table, their mechanics are weak, their voice isn't very good. And then that just kind of builds and adds to what a coach already thinks they know. So I hope that was a little bit helpful for you.
It was, thank you.
Yeah.
And I agree, Greg, 100%. Sometimes the best thing that we can do when communicating with coaches is just being honest.
Yeah.
Be honest with them.
Yep.
Because in the moment, the coach may or may not understand, but we're not working for that moment. We're working to build that relationship. And you get to the point where if you're honest with them, they know they can trust you. Then you build grace.
Yeah.
And over the course of your career. And now, as you move forward, you can have the exact same call, but now the way they approach you is different. It's more of a question than a challenge,
Right.
because you built that grace over time.
Yep.
And our biggest mistake that we can make as officials sometimes is that we're approaching them and we know we didn't like the call, they didn't like the call, but we are afraid of that interaction. It's just like a conversation you have with anyone else in your life, whether you're at work, you're at home, in your family. We may be uncomfortable, but just have the conversation. It's not going to last forever, and be honest. All right, who has the next question for Greg after Isis?
Hey, Greg.
James here.
Oh, hey, Faye.
So my question is a two-part question. So it seems as if prior to COVID, no one was really talking about this. And then after COVID, just kind of in the groups, people are talking about like, you need to have an exit plan. My question is, the first one is, when did you begin to have an exit plan? That's number one. And number two is like, what did it feel like executing that and putting that into motion?
Okay. I think, having an exit plan is fine. I probably 10 years ago worked with a guy that I happened to work with him 3 times at the end of the year that he was retiring, 3 different years. So his exit plan was not very specific. He goes, yeah, I'm getting out. This is going to be one of them happened to be his very last game he was going to referee. And you want to be supportive of him, and, but then again, the next year he's back on the roster and he's working. So I think things do change, but I think selfishly coordinators kind of say that to avoid, some tough conversations with officials that maybe are at a point where they need to, think about moving from Division I to predominantly Division II. Some coordinators will, just cut people's schedules, and without any type of legitimate reasoning. I kind of had my exit plan in my head probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it was one that I didn't care how many years I refereed. It happened to be 31 at the Division I level, but 39 total. I could have gone another year and been 40. Maybe that was the magic number. I really don't know, but the number really didn't matter to me. What was more important was kind of what other things were going on in my life that would afford me the opportunity to be there for my family. My wife's mom was kind of ill, and I felt like me being around a little bit more would be a good thing to kind of support her and help her in taking care of her. my dad wasn't in great health, and we at that time he was staying, on his own. But there's just lots of things individually that kind of helped me kind of do that. I felt so comfortable, executing the plan. And the way I started it was, two of my Division I coordinators wanted to know ahead of the season that if you were going to retire. They had voiced that in several meetings that I had been in, and so I called both of them and just said, "Hey, appreciate everything you've done for me over the years. This is going to be my last year." I wasn't hunting for games necessarily, but they wanted to be able to know ahead of time. Not that they were going to. I heard somebody say, "Well, we'll make sure you get to every school once." Well, that's not going to happen in this day and age most of the time. So they wanted to know. I executed it. I stuck by my guns, and I think it was the right decision. It didn't have anything to do with my health or not loving what I did, but I think it's a good idea to kind of be thinking about it. But I don't think it should predominantly be to make the job easier of a coordinator. Now, if someone just says, "Hey, I'm retiring this year," it does give me an opportunity to, if they want me to let everybody know, I can. If they want me to keep it secret, I told a few people, and it worked out good for me. I don't know if that was the best way to do it, but ultimately I felt very comfortable with it. But then the regional advisors deal came about, and as Wayne said earlier, I do travel quite a bit with it, but I also can make my own schedule. And that's the big thing. I don't have to rely on Patty or Lisa or Debbie to tell me where I'm going to go. If I don't want to work for 4 or 5 days, I don't schedule games. So that also gives me the opportunity to now my mother-in-law passed, but now I'll tell you, Faye, on Tuesday, we're putting my dad in an assisted living. I've spoken with you about his situation. So he's all in on it, and it's going to be I think a positive thing for him. He needs some of the social interaction, which he doesn't get at home, and it'll be, I think, a very positive thing for him. He turns 92 on Wednesday, so he's I think the whole family's kind of in on it. He's with us here at the lake this weekend, so it'll be I think a good transition on Tuesday. So, yep.
Well, first off, happy birthday to him.
Yes.
And I think what we've talked about over the years is, I think maybe that extra help will, you guys will really like it, and he'll come to hopefully love it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think us as kids of his, sometimes we feel a little guilty about doing that, but I think ultimately it's going to be the best thing. And I'm sure you see that in your job, that it's a tough decision for people, but anyway.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I have one more question, and you briefly had said something along these lines when answering this question. I'm just wondering, has there been conversation about releasing, like, if you're not going to rehire someone, has there been conversations of like letting individuals know like they're not going to be rehired? I'm going to use myself as an example. So I was on staff with someone just last year. They took over a conference. Someone took over the conference, and an email went out this week notifying individuals whether they were on staff or not. And I wish I was notified that I wasn't on staff, just so I can update my resume, and if anyone asked, wouldn't give them the wrong information,
Right.
saying that I wasn't on staff. So has there been conversations in the past, and if so, what did it look like? And if towards like letting people know that they're not on staff, or kind of
Yeah.
what we are on staff, and why not have more conversations if going towards that route? Because we always talk about communication.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I think that, you know, it is a hard conversation, you know, to have. In fact, I had it just this week with someone before I left for Indianapolis on Tuesday. You know, I think you have to be honest with them. I usually don't do it in an email. I think that's kind of impersonal. So I try to reach out to people. And, you know, some of these people, especially early on in my career with the MIAA, I mean, these are folks I had worked with for years. And, you know, you develop those relationships, but now you've got a different hat on, and you're trying to, you know, you have, I think in my mind, I had an idea of where I wanted our staff to head, and this person just didn't fit, or, you know, whatever the reason was within that scope of our staff. So, you know, I don't believe in just keeping people on staff just to give them a couple games a year. If that's, but you know, some people want to be kept on staff. On the other side of it, some people just want to say they're part of a certain conference. And I don't think that's doing a service to either one, the conference or the official, by just kind of letting them hang around. And we've got to develop our staffs, you know, within the scope of our conferences, what works best for, you know, especially Division II. Division I doesn't have to worry about this because they can move people around, flying wherever. But within the scope of the MIAA, it's a geographic footprint that, obviously, you living in Colorado, you know that I'm not going to bring you to Fort Smith, Arkansas, for a game. But on the other hand, you know that I'll work with your schedule and try to get you as many games as I possibly can. So I think that's a big part of you know, where we're at with communicating with people on staffing or not rehiring, I guess. Yeah.
That's good. Faye, really
Thank
good
you.
questions.
Yep.
Okay, everyone, we have time for one more question. James, did you want to get your question in?
Yeah. Hi, Greg. This is James.
Hey, James.
My question was, especially from the rookie to moving on throughout the conference and throughout your years, throughout your combination of experience and in your new role, what is you use the word solid. What is what you look for as a solid official? And kind of the piggyback on that, what do you see as a good partner?
You know, I think being that so-called solid official is somebody that the coordinator can trust on the floor. They're open to feedback. They're willing to be. You know, we've all worked with people that we don't really like, but they're really good officials. I on the other side of that coin, I want everybody to be somebody I want to work with. And, you know, me as a coordinator, breaking them in and you know, moving them through a early season non-conference schedule to a conference schedule, and you know, developing those relationships is something that I think is key for being that solid official. Obviously, play calling. You know, I don't do call charts on it in all MIAA games. So I can't tell you a percentage, but certainly knowing what I know now in relationship to my regional advisor position, I want our officials probably to be in that mid 80 to upper 80s, correct call type category. And I think we can achieve that. If I went back and did statistics on maybe a MIAA tournament in the past, hopefully we would be at least there, or maybe even a little bit higher. So, I think being that, I think that's what kind of a solid official means to me. Being, what was the second part of your question? I'm not good at 2-part questions most of the time because I start rambling.
We were talking about the partner aspect. What do you consider,
Yeah. I think the partner part is something that everybody's personalities are different, and we want to think that an A personality type person. I've got lots of them on my staff. They all want to be in charge, and but not everybody's the referee. But on the other side of that are referees that recognize that they've got 3 A personalities on a game, have to do a better job of including everyone and giving everyone input on things that happen during the game. Don't just say, this is the way we're going to do it and move forward, because most A personalities don't like that. And I think that's where we fail oftentimes, is by thinking that since I'm an A personality, everybody else has to fit into a different box. And I disagree with that completely. I think we can all be assertive, but then on the other hand, those other A personalities need to realize that they need to maybe take a little bit of a back seat. Don't be dismissive if something's happening that they don't agree with, but know that, in the right situation, now I can step up and I can help the crew, and I can be that solid partner that everybody else is looking for. So, I think, the communication before games creates a more confident feeling with the whole crew. You get back to your partners in a timely manner. You get to the game site on time. All those things that we know are just kind of expected of us, but sometimes we don't pay as much attention to them as we probably should. So, hope that answered some of your questions.
It did. Thank you. Appreciate it, Greg.
Yep.
Hey, everyone, really, really, really good questions today. I really appreciate everyone participating. Greg, I've added an additional aspect to all the calls that I think is kind of interesting. Do you have a question for the group?
Wow. I think, knowing what you know now, how are you going to implement that for this coming season? That's we've got to be able to take information and put that into implementation. And what I said today, or what Lisa said last week, that isn't going to work for everybody. Certainly, I watched her video on my way to the game to Indianapolis the other day, and what a wealth of information she is. So I think just taking this information, implementing it, taking what works for you. It's like I say in camp, what we say as clinicians in camp isn't going to work for everybody, but we've got to glean some of that information and use it if we can. So how would you put it in? I'm challenging you to put some of this information that you've gotten this summer into your game this year. So
That is a great, great question. Does anyone have a response to that question?
I think just being so early in my career, and like I'm saying, being just such a sponge to the knowledge that y'all have. One thing that's been a big theme even since I've been coming to work out with you, Wayne, and we got to speak to Coach Mays from SNU. Just really accepting the fact that we're not always going to be right. We're going to make mistakes. And just being able to communicate with coaching so I have an understanding to it. Like sometimes coaches, we just want to know, or I really don't know the rules. So can you please tell me? Or I really don't understand. I just want to hear you, or I just want you to hear me. So I think that's something that'll really be a help to me moving forward in my career, just being able to have those conversations that sometimes may be hard or may not be favorable to me, just being ready to have those types of conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, Isis. I love getting perspective from officials in different stages of their careers. I think it's outstanding. Anyone else have a response?
Hey, I like what Greg said about, just being the best partner for, even if your personality type may not match that specific crew or another crew member, just being the best, being good enough as a person, as an official to adjust and be the best that game or that day or for that, just even like that play for that situation. Just finding a way to do that would be that's what I would try to work on the most.
Yep.
That's good, Tanner. All right, anyone else?
Yes, I would say, like Isis said, regardless of where you are in your career, always be a sponge. There's always something new to learn. There's always something new that you will see that you haven't seen before. Don't ever think the humility that comes with officiating. Sometimes we have egos and we have to let those egos go. And we're still learning. We have to be a great partner, a great communicator, but also have a very short memory. Because we're harder on ourselves and we'll take ourselves out of the game. Focus and mental sharpness. We can be physically fit, but if we're not mentally fit, it can hurt us even more so. So the play that we may have gotten wrong, or we know that it was wrong, and we admit that it was wrong to the coach, we have to forget about it. The next play, we can't think in our minds that I have to make something up for this coach. We still have to officiate the game that's in front of us. So having a short memory and not being hard on yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that is really good. Really, really good. All right. Do we have another response for Greg to Greg's question before we wrap it up?
Hi.
Oh,
Go ahead, TT.
Okay, go ahead. Who's that? Go ahead. Okay, I'm going. Go ahead, Faye. Go ahead, Faye.
All right, sorry. I just put on myself on mute. One of the things that my goal to implement this year is, one, to be curious with my partners, and to be more engaged. The ones that know me know that like if I don't know you, I'm pretty quiet and just stick to myself, and I've been needing to work on that a little bit more. So yes.
Awesome. Yep.
Okay, my turn.
Go ahead, TC.
Okay. Well, like I'm believing this officiating is just like a life. We can learn a lot of things, like myself. Not only just calling the right call or just being a good partner or a good person, I can be. Many times that I am not comfortable being something different, but my goal and my implementation for this year, something different than I've been doing, which maybe I should more like confidence be myself, or more my demeanor's changing, or something that me living this long time, then doing this officiating that I love. So I do try something different to be better. That's just my my goal. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
That's good. Good. Thank you both. All right. Anyone else? Well, Greg, I do want to, before we end the call, I do want to thank you for taking time today. Because this is the day you're with your family. And I really appreciate you being willing to share an hour of your day with us on a day that you very easily could be doing something else. So
Hey, that's good. I'm glad you asked me.
yes, sir. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And for you and everyone else, I wish everyone the best for this upcoming season. And if anyone has any questions that they did not get in today, send them to me and I'll forward them to Greg and we'll get some responses for you. All right. So hey, everyone enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you for joining me on this Sunday afternoon coffee with Greg Small. I really appreciate it. Thank you all. And Greg, I will talk to you soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you. All right. Thanks, Wayne. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Bye.